State CIOs face many challenges, but three critical areas getting special attention are strengthening cybersecurity and risk management, harnessing the power of artificial intelligence, and advancing cloud services to modernize IT infrastructure. I'm Wyatt Cash with Scoop News Group, and joining us to take a closer look at these challenges and opportunities that state governments face as they embrace these new technologies are Wendy Collins, Vice President, AI Leader at NTT Data. Also joining us is Aleta Jeffress, Vice President, CTO, and COO for NTT Data, and Ayman Husain, Vice President, North American Sales and GTM for Cloud, Network, and Digital Collaboration Services, also at NTT Data. Thank you all very much for joining us. And I'm going to throw this first question up to kind of all three of you, and maybe we can start with you, Aleta. What do you see as the single biggest technology priority for state CIOs right now, and why?
First, thanks for having me here. And I think one of the most important things for state CIOs to really consider is resilience around their technology. And that can take on a number of different things, which I'm sure we'll talk more about today. But when you think about resilience in technology, it's not only about the quote technology department, it really means something that you have to address across the enterprise. So when you think about building out resilience plans, that's not only in technology and your enterprise, but also in your vendors and in your people. There's a lot of things that you have to do on a regular basis. So resilience really means building in some discipline that really allows you to say, here's our current strategy. How are we going to improve upon that? How are we going to build that out across our enterprise? And then how are we going to continue to execute on it? Because it's not a one and done type of thing, but really looking at that as an ongoing program and making sure that all of the areas of your enterprise, not only quote the IT department, but all the technology is reinforced and re-educated on a continual basis.
And Wendy, how would you answer that same question as far as what state CIOs are kind of prioritizing right now?
Yeah, to piggyback off of what Aleta mentioned, I think cyber and AI governance are really an important focus area. You know, the great thing about AI is that it unlocks so many new opportunities that CIOs have never really been able to tap into. But that new opportunity set also comes with some risk. And so creating a culture where your staff can use, explore, and experiment with AI safely is really, really important. And the way that we recommend CIOs of any focus, it's really about creating a strong governance framework and bringing the right groups of people together that balances innovation and protection, right? The temptation is to lock down AI and really restrict its use. But when you do that, you also limit the potential innovation. And I mean, let's be honest. If you lock down AI, probably your staff is going to find other ways to use it, right? So the best practice is to leverage a strong, sensible governance framework in order to bring AI responsibly and safely to your teams.
Those are some great observations. Ayman, love to hear your thoughts as to what you see state CIOs focusing most on.
Absolutely. So taking lead from what Wendy and Aleta has shared, one of the things that I'm noticing a lot in the state CIOs and state agencies in general is the lack of funding and lack of people. So what I advocate with AI is you have to use it to augment humanity. It's not about replacing jobs, it's doing more with less, and technology like AI can do that. So there's a lot of automation that's on top of a lot of AI, CIOs in the state segment because they have to now scale services to their citizens in a way that requires automation, fast action in a technology that if you are not ready for with the governance that Wendy was talking about, you're going to be in a world of hurt because you won't be able to scale. So when I speak to these state CIOs, they're saying, hey, I need to do more with less. AI seems like the way to do it. Is this the right way to do it? Is it safe? Is it governable? But when you think about it, it is about making sure that those people are ready to go with solution and services. Ultimately, the citizens of the state will get benefit for. So it is top of mind is like, I want to do these things, but I don't have enough people, nor do I have the budget. So how am I going to get there?
kind of looked at three major areas. I'd love to drill down into each of those a little more deeply. Wendy, let me start with you. Where do you see the most immediate and impactful opportunities for states to actually adopt AI and do so responsibly?
I love that you're asking this question. And I would say, based on where we are in the technology maturity of AI, there are some really low risk use cases that state CIOs can tap into. And then, in addition to pursuing those low risk use cases that I'll explain here in a moment, it's also really important to create an AI literacy program. I tell this to all of my clients, regardless of whether you're public or private sector, or what your role is. AI literacy to make sure that your teams and your staff are leveraging the best of AI and doing it safely. So a couple of low-hanging fruit use case opportunities, one of which is knowledge management. In the state CIO realm, complex policy documents are really tough for your staff and caseworkers to navigate. It's a perfect opportunity to leverage generative AI and AI in general. I would say another example is content creation. Certainly, I wouldn't necessarily recommend that reports or correspondence or press releases go out the door without human oversight and intervention, but certainly creating first drafts of reports or press releases or emails or memorandums is a great use of AI. And then lastly, getting insights from any unstructured data. And when I say unstructured, I mean really heavy text-based data. 85% of data exists in that format, not in structured databases. And AI can be a great tool partner for navigating, exploring, and understanding unstructured data.
And then, Aleta, building on something that I thought was very interesting that you talked about, which is resilience. Talk to us a little more about how you think states should be thinking about both risk management and resilience to stay ahead, especially as threats are evolving so rapidly and we're seeing more and more human-centric attacks.
I think, to some of what Wendy has shared and Eamon too, really leveraging AI is important when you're thinking about building resilience. And people are still kind of scared of that. How is that going to impact my environment? What is the outcome of that going to be? Is it really useful? But again, taking some really low-hanging use cases and making sure that you can build those into your environment, even if it's on a trial basis, and see how you can continue to build on that to ensure that your environments become more and more resilient. I think too, really investing in figuring out a way to make sure that your funding is consistent around cybersecurity and resilience. We all know funding's a challenge. It varies from year to year with the states and everything that's going on, but really finding a way to nail that down as much as possible, because then that will allow you to build out a program that can be sustainable and you can continue to leverage that, whether that's for things like AI use case development, as well as making sure you're still reinvesting into your workers and your workforce, because they need to understand, especially the security teams, making sure that they continue to be upskilled. And then you're educating just the general workforce, because as we all know, humans are still the biggest threat, right? And the biggest weakness. So I think making sure that all of those things align. And then lastly, I would really encourage state CIOs to think about some of the new and some of the upcoming vendors. There's a lot of progress being made in technology from a vendor perspective. And I know sometimes the next cool thing might be a little bit intimidating, but take the time to kind of learn what are those vendors doing, and how can you partner, evaluate those risks as well, but take advantage of what they have to offer, especially for maybe some smaller use cases.
Terrific. And then, Ayman, central to all of this is really the growing adoption of cloud, especially for digital government. Can you talk a little bit about how you're seeing states balancing modernization with cost of cloud, and as well as security and interoperability concerns?
Absolutely. That's a great conversation topic. So if you think of the rudimentary balance of what cloud is giving you is the ability to not be restricted by assets that are yours, probably locked up in a basement or a computer data center of your own. So when you think of cross-agency conversations within a state government, you have data, which is the currency of almost everything that citizens would need to do whatever service they're going to do. Interoperability is extremely important. And using cloud, it becomes a lot easier and simpler. Now, with newer technologies, with API and connections of that nature, you can actually cross-pollinate services without having to own it and manage it directly. So you actually have a better way of saving money when you operate within two agencies within the same state. I'll use an example. I used to live in a state where the township I lived in required you to pay an excise tax. That was for your vehicle, essentially the right to have a car in that township. But they did not want to store any information about the owner, their license plates, the registration, all that. But they actually had to collect that tax, which is at the town level. That organization using cloud technology was able to tap into this data source from the DMV and not have to create technologies and solutions and the web interfaces to just do this little thing that their municipality required them to do. And that kind of interoperability actually will save money. And by saving money, also saving talent that requires to operate those things. You don't have to have individual people being trained and managing those capabilities. You have the ability to delegate those tasks through the agencies and take advantage of those learned knowledge that many of those agencies already have spent years and decades building. And so interoperability through cloud becomes a lot less restrictive and actually gives you the benefit of it. Now, the entry to cloud sometimes is challenging, but I've noticed in most states and here in the US, they're done at a state level. So the cloud decisions, the cloud interoperability, the cloud framework, the governance that Wendy was talking about, that's done at a very high CIO level, say, I guess, governor level, where you don't have to worry about some of the structural things new technology brings into it, like single sign-on or identity management, because it's much easier to manage and take advantage of. So I say it is a big part of bringing services to the citizens, and that's the only way you're going to be able to do it is not recreating the wheel. That's a big topic of conversation. Don't reinvent something your peer group has already done.
Next, I'd like to kind of explore really the real dilemma that I think virtually all CIOs face, and that's trying to make the right investment choices given the various budget constraints that they have. So all three of these priorities, cybersecurity, AI, and the cloud, they're all critical, but how should they prioritize investments across these different disciplines? Aleta, maybe I'll have you take that one first.
Well, I think that if you can really clean up your data and drive the compliance around data and governance, if you're set up to win in that area, then that will allow you to better leverage AI and new AI solutions. It will also help with your cybersecurity resilience, and making sure that if you followed your governance and you followed your compliance, then that will enable your cybersecurity to run better as well. So if I had to pick where to start, if you haven't already done that, that's where I would focus, would be data governance and compliance.
Yeah, great place to start. Wendy, what additional thoughts do you have on that?
Yeah, I would say it's a yes and, right? The choice of where to start with AI, I would say AI literacy should be the number one thing the state CIOs invest in, because even if you don't have proliferated AI tools, your staff and your employees and your citizens are using them. And on top of that, your next group of employees are going to be AI native employees, and they're going to expect that they come into a culture of the workplace that knows how do you leverage AI for its best advantage. So for sure, literacy is the first one. The second one is to really think hard and prioritize any AI pilots that you go after that are tied to larger processes. What we see and have seen over the last couple of let's call it 18 months is AI is being dabbled in, and nothing really is cohesive enough to make sure that the productivity gains are realized. So picking your pilots and making sure that you have line of sight to a return against those investments are really, really important.
And Ayman, your thoughts on it?
So I like what Wendy said. Literacy of the AI solutions is paramount to success. But one of the things that I found is the barrier to entry on these spaces is restricted from the the compliance rules and regulations that was done before AI was even a thought, right? And when you get stuck in that construct of can I re-engineer it backwards is what really prevents success. So you cannot re-engineer it backwards. And like Wendy mentioned, we live in a world where our new level of employees and entry to the job market are the generation of folks that are growing up with access to things on their personal lives that if you're not available on the state level or commercial enterprise level, it becomes restrictive to their own productivity. So one of the things that I advocate state CIOs is to have a continuous agile mindset of introducing little things in a space, and cloud is a great way to do it. You don't have to spend a lot of time and money, and a lot of the vendors in the ecosystem are very friendly to state governments to make it very easy for both learning and dissemination of information and capability to actually help those capabilities and nurture that development. So I would actually focus on that space a lot. The other thing is, and I kind of digress a little bit. One of the challenges I've had in agencies, uh, more of something you have means more of exploit you're going to have. And what I mean by that is data, right? We are in a world where data is the currency, and you have to govern and harden it in a way that it doesn't get exploited. But if you have more of it, your attack surface goes up. And so if you don't know how to protect your attack surface, you will get in a place where you might be compromised. And personal identity management type stuff, I have those emails from banks and, credit cards that say, hey, so we found your email address on this place. We found your email address in dark web. Well, it's there because somebody kept a copy of it when they shouldn't have. And that's where they got compromised. Now it's out there in Ethersphere and dark web and people are exploiting it. The same thing applies to state agencies. You want to be very mindful of the data underlay of these things that you have to have the governance layer and education on top of that for what this means. And AI can actually fast track that. If you use AI for the discovery capabilities that it can do, you will realize there's a lot of things you don't need to keep around. And that also saves money and cost down the road.
Hmm. Well, last question for each of you. If you could leave state CIOs with one actionable takeaway as they close out 2025, what would it be? Aleta?
I would advise to really embrace an AI use case. We've talked about that throughout this conversation, but state CIOs have a lot of gaps that they have to fill, a lot of things that will come up related to their constituents. So look at those gaps, determine what you want those outcomes to really look like, and see if you can build AI use cases around those. And that could be something very simple. It could be something more complex. Obviously using AI in the cybersecurity space, I think there's a lot of things to be gained there in efficiencies and in costs. But don't be afraid of that. Embrace that. Tie it to an outcome. So as Wendy said, you have the ROI on it, and be agile in how you continue to develop those.
And Wendy?
I think the biggest piece of advice would be don't go it alone. Collaborate within agencies in your state, collaborate across states, collaborate nationally, collaborate with academic institutions, collaborate with other companies and partners in the private space as well. There's no need at this point in the maturity of the AI technology landscape for you to have to figure this out all on your own.
And finally, Ayman?
Absolutely. So I like what Wendy and Alita both said. Don't do it alone. One of the things I would say, don't do it alone, but also learn by exploring things that you may not have thought about. I use developing nations as an example, because the telephone networks are not very profoundly available in developing nations. They have leapfrogged and moved into a 5G network world where they're doing payments and identity management and a lot of things right off the mobile device that is small footprint and capable, right? Think about the learning they skipped because they didn't have to do a traditional legacy infrastructure with networks and IP address and all that. They jumped, leapfrogged it, and they are better at it, right? So there's a lot of things that if you think that is cost prohibitive because I have this infrastructure to manage and uplift and change, don't be worried. You can actually learn from both commercial entities as well as public sector entities to figure out what they have done without reinventing the wheel. The other thing I would always recommend all state CIOs or agencies that are involved in technology is not to solve for perfection. It's okay to take some leeway of success and fail, but do it in a way that gives you the benefit of what you're trying to do. So experimentation is a good thing. And our vendors, all these vendors that are out there that are selling to state governments, they will help you with it. So it's not a cost prohibitive venture. You can tell them, hey, can you help us learn, educate, do hackathons, solve for this? Because today we need this, but it's not there. And no one's invented this. How can we do this without having to, really restructure the entire IT organization in a state level? You ask for those and they will come forward. So make your network very strong and profound. And while commercial entities and enterprise entities that are on the profit side of it also have similar problems as state agencies do, especially with cybersecurity and education and empowerment. So don't be surprised that just because you're a state agency that a commercial for-profit manufacturing company has not had that, you'll be surprised. We all have those same experiences and challenges, and having that network of CIOs and like-minded folks in a technology forum is a great way to do it.
Well, a lot of great advice there. Well, we're going to have to wrap up, but let me take this moment to thank you all, Aleta Jeffress, Wendy Collins, and Ayman Husain. Thank you very much for sharing your respective perspectives on many of the emerging technologies and their opportunities for state CIOs. So thank you all for joining us.